sun is shining, and we've got clear skies for miles here in Hallandale Beach on a serene-looking Saturday morning as training wrapped up not too long ago. Tony Martinez and his track maintenance crew doing work, prepping the main and the turf course for a fantastic blockbuster day of racing on this leap year edition of the Fasig-Tipton Fountain of Youth. Hello again, everyone. So good to have you with us. Kind of a Saturday morning edition of Gulfstream today. Acacia Courtney, Jason Blewett, catching up with you from our clubhouse studios. And what a card, what a day, and the weather is perfect.
It really is. It's not quite as windy as yesterday, so if you're coming down to Florida looking for some sunshine, you're going to get it today. It really is great. It's good weather for horse racing, too. Horses love this kind of temperature that we're going to get, and as Jason mentioned, 14 races, 10 stakes, 9 of them graded. Just a sensational card from start to finish. Hopefully you're joining in on all of the action because it's bound to be a great one.
And speaking of action, yesterday a ton going on. Not only the eve of the big weekend with the Saudi Cup, and we wish our American horses, including Maximum Security, who's got a number of cameos in that very dramatic open. Best of luck to all those connections and horses in a short time over in Saudi Arabia. It was also a Stronach 5 carryover mania Friday, February 28th. They bet a few $100,000 worth of fresh money into the pool, and the All-Star ticket hit for the team. They had a $96 play. Not a bad payout for a buck.
Not bad at all. $1,400. Certainly we'll take that happily. The Stronach 5 will be back next week. It's always a great wager with that low takeout. We hope that you participated, but that was just one of the highlights on Friday.
Definitely. Ron Nicoletti, our mayor of Gulfstream, we call him the Gulfstream Park Guru. He was in the pressure cooker in the Beat the Expert contest, and although Ronnie walked away with a couple of winners on the card, it was an outstanding day for Roger, Tim, and Anthony, who each had 5 winners, if memory serves. Yeah, very impressive. 50% strike rate for the team up there. So Roger, Tim, and Anthony will be getting their Beat the Expert polo shirts. We will reach out to you. We'll get your address, and we'll send you that stuff. But appreciate everybody playing. And although I know you're looking forward to today, I do have to remind everybody, including you, you're up next.
Yes, I was trying to forget that, but Jason's very good at doing reminders. We do it every Friday. It's always a lot of fun. So thank you to everybody that participated, and it's free to play, so you might as well.
And we did have a horse for Mike Tomlinson win the nightcap here yesterday in Super Courage. However, and that horse was one of a handful of runners in that, say, 5-2 to 4-1 range. That horse ultimately triggered because there were some good prices beneath. A pretty nice carryover in the Super High 5 as we have the 11:35 a.m. opener on this February 29th. That's the first sort of key nugget in a very extensive and very popular and very big-time, big day multi-race wagering menu that's got the 3 monster guarantees a bit down the line.
Yes, and that's not a typo. The Rainbow Six today starts in race number 9. So that will be the start of the 20-cent Rainbow Six. We have a $300,000 guarantee. That number 9 horse, Super Courage for Mike Tomlinson, Trombetta.
Oh, it was Trombetta. Yep,
yes,
you're right.
Night.
Yep.
Was not alive as a single, so we did trigger a carryover there as well. So we'll have a $300,000 guarantee. And the late pick 5 and late pick 4 should be really nice wagers as well, with $500,000 and $750. Of course, all of those capped by the Fasig-Tipton Fountain of Youth, which is race 14.
74th running of the Fountain of Youth, a great race. I mean, really a landmark race on this circuit for many years, well over a half a century as it stands. 85 Kentucky Derby points up for grabs, and yeah, that'll be the capper to this show and a fantastic card of racing. Now, we set sail with a good scene setter. It might not be a stakes, but you've got 12 to choose from in the turf opener. That starts the early pick 5 a little after 11:30 a.m.
And as we always say, these $16,000 claiming races on the turf are absolute wars, and this one is no different. So we'll show you my pick 5 ticket. I kept things a little bit more on the affordable side. I can certainly understand you're maybe trying to save a little bit for the big multi-race wagers and the guaranteed pools a little bit later
don't blow the bankroll.
Don't blow it all
Send it
early.
in, but don't blow the bankroll, right?
Send it in, but save a little bit. Hopefully you're just going to add to it in the early pick 5. So that's the goal. I'm using Farley on the drop, Bondurant for Mike Maker. Pretty key scratch of Tipsy Kitten in the opener. One of the only, I think, probably real key scratches on today's card. Very few, which is great. I've got Todd and Chad in the maiden special weight in the second, so I feel okay about that. Our stakes action starts with the Hutchison, which did not fill last week, comes back with a field of 7, 6 with a scratch, and a very salty one at that. Looking forward to seeing the matchup between Chivalry and Our Nation on Parade. The stakes quality continues in the Grade 3 Palm Beach in race number 4. I'm using 3 deep there, and then we wrap things up at the pick 5 with the Grade 3 Honey Fox. I've got Atomic Blonde and Munchkin Money, both coming off good efforts for a $24 play.
And 2 classy barns to hopefully cap that winning $24 early pick 5. You've got Todd Pletcher sending out Atomic Blonde and Christophe Command sending out and controlling Munchkin Money, who just continues to hit hard.
Shows up every time.
Yeah, Father Time has far from not caught up to her. She might be in the best form of her life, a major player from an outside post. I'm inside. I'm not outside to start Acacia, looking at this open $16,000 to $14,000 claiming race that sees you and I in a very logical looking, say, trifecta box, certainly exacta box with the 1 Farley and the number 4 Bondurant. In the case of the 1 Farley, it's the reason he's going to be bet today. It's just a drop in class that I like.
It is, and he finished 4th last time, pretty well beaten 4th, but it was against Tougher, and it was behind Battle of Blenheim, who came back with a super game win the next time out, and he has some tactical speed. That's probably going to be his advantage over Bondurant, and I know his last couple of races have just not been pretty. I'm just hoping that he's going to be in the right spot today, maybe not so far back, and we're glad to see Tyler Gaffleone, though unseated with Danzig Dunhill yesterday, took the rest of the card off to rest up for today, and he's back in action.
Yeah, plenty of action for both Mike Maker and Tyler Gaffleone. We've got the return of the Pegasus Turf winner coming up in Zulu Alpha. He'll be running fairly late in the day. In fact, if memory serves, it's the race preceding the Fountain of Youth, the McDermott. I know that's one of your favorite races on the circuit.
It is. 1 mile and 3/8 on the turf, and it's a salty field that came up as well. Zulu Alpha, Thread of Blue, some really nice horses in there. Sadler's Joy.
Without a doubt. That is a grade 1, grade 1.5. Masquerading is a grade 2 legit field, and then some. Speaking of legit or potentially legit, it wouldn't be a big day Saturday with a major Triple Crown and Florida Derby prep race waiting in the wings if we didn't have at least one outstanding looking and very deep 3-year-old maiden special weight, and that certainly applies to the Cast Acacia in race number 2. And off the bat, to me, this is just the latest round of a seemingly never-ending arms race between Chad Brown and Todd Pletcher as far as East Coast racing is concerned, where Chad has got my top pick, the number 5 Candy Machine, who cost nearly $500,000 as a yearling, running against the duo of trainer Todd Pletcher and the 2 firsters, the 1 I'll Fight Dempsey, who you picked, and the 3 Centastic.
Yeah, I picked I'll Fight Dempsey, a colt by Into Mischief. I like him to debut at this 6 furlongs. I watched one of his recent works, courtesy of XBTV, and he was a little bit high-headed, kind of strong and ambitious early on in the work. And then once he settled out nicely, I think that he's going to be one who's going to be able to show a little bit of speed, and he's got John Velasquez aboard. Centastic was working with Fried Rice King, who we're going to see a little bit later as one of the best names I've ever seen.
Yeah, great name for Bobby Flay.
Absolutely, and was not quite as sharp for a debut. Candy Machine just makes a lot of sense with the pedigree and the barn behind him.
And third foal out of a dam, who won a couple of times on the turf and synthetic. Both the siblings out of Viva Carina, who's by Giants Causeway, are winners to date. And you consider the source. It's a big day. I highly doubt Chad's bringing one over, especially for Peter Brandt and 3 Chimneys that he didn't like. I mean, quite the contrary. I'm sure there's a story with Candy Machine, and we'll see with I'll Fight Dempsey down inside. Let's move on to the stakes. Again, you get 10 total stakes on the program, and the rescheduled $100,000 Hutchison for 3-year-olds in race number 3. Very few notable, as you had kind of pointed out, Acacia, with your early pick 5. Very few really noteworthy changes or scratches on the card. This race, however, lost kind of a wise guy horse in the 3 Scardo, and the way it shapes up now without Scardo in the mix, whether you liked him or not, and I was a little hesitant, thinking he'd run back to that big figure. You've got the 2 stakes winners, 2 very different-looking stakes winners, in fact. In the local boy, the 5 Chivalry, who's as honest as the day is long for Ralph Nix, and then the Dean Reeves Private Purchase and Kathy Ritvo trainer change, the Maryland bred, who's obviously pretty good and was solid last season in Our Nation on Parade.
And Our Nation on Parade, he was actually a private purchase after his debut. So this is the second start for Dean Reeves, though the first start with Kathy. And I did get to see him win the nursery. I was at Maryland that weekend at Laurel Park for the Maryland Million weekend. Laddie Liam came back to win and then was the sales topper at a Mid-Atlantic sale after that for horses in training. Obviously a very highly touted horse, and that was a solid field. This one finished up really nicely, and he looked like he has some ability. So we're happy to see him here. I'm curious to see how he is going to stack up to Shivery, who schooled the other day, and he's just a gorgeous, gorgeous horse for Ralph, who obviously is familiar with the family. Garter and Tie was good for him, too. I like the turn back for Shivery to 6 furlongs. I think that's a better spot for him.
Not to say he can't go 7, but at this pretty high level, Florida bred 7/8, he'd probably be a big favorite. This level, even though it might not be the strongest hutch we've ever run, 6 seems like a really great fit. And not for nothing, Mischievous Alex looked like a potential, very talented 3-year-old, to say the least, in his romping win in the Swell. And I love that Shivery beat a good horse, maybe a horse that didn't bring his A game in Green Light Go, but he still beat him, and very encouraged that Untitled, after that bad break in the Swell, was able to come out of that race and run pretty well behind Gouverneur Morris.
He did. I think that that's going to be a pretty key race as well. And Shivery had just been so solid prior to that. And we got to give a little love to Smash Factor. With the scratch of Scardo, that does kind of aid Smash Factor as far as the pace does go. He finally got away from Chance It and as seen on TV to get his win last time.
And took down 2 highly regarded horses, one for Navarro and Conquest Day, and the other for Mr. Pletcher and Carpe Omnius. Yes, Omnius.
Yes.
Got to think about that for a second. But no, Smash Factor is game, and he's got speed for days. So they very much look like the big 3, although 3 very distinct resumes in that Hutchison Stakes. We move into graded stakes competition, the first of many, in fact, in the graded column today in Saturday's 4th. We're back on the turf, going 1 mile and a 16th in the 3-year-old version of the Grade 3 Palm Beach. Lot going on in this race, multi-layered, and I'm looking at the 12 Vitology, who does, with the scratch of the 5 Fancy Liquor, moves in 1 stall here, but they do have a relatively lengthy run to the turn. It's not 7.5.
Absolutely.
Happily, it's a mile and a 16th, and just like this horse's body of work last year, specifically a very good effort in the Bourbon as he comes back for trainer Brendan Walsh.
He almost got there. He was very game that day. He ran well in the Grade 1 Summer at Woodbine in his first North American start since coming over from Europe, and then really, I think, kind of proved his ability. Unfortunately, stuck with that far outside post in the Bourbon, and I do find it interesting that Gear Jockey and Ete Indienne were both in that Bourbon as well. We'll see them later on the Dirt and Fountain of Youth. I did take a stab with South Bend, who I was so excited to see get on the turf last time, and he was beaten by a solid horse in Field Pass who'd been knocking on the door for Maker. Blinkers go on. I think this is a tough spot, but I like him on the turf. I like how he ran last time, and I do think that he is a colt with ability who's maybe just now finding his best.
Do we have a Maker stat here, or did that horse scratch?
That horse scratched Fancy Liquor.
Fancy Liquor, gotcha. So Tiesto will be the other major player for trainer Bill Mott, as this horse has not. Pricey colt by Tisnow for L&J Foxwoods and a couple of other outfits. Returns for Bill Mott, who we wish good luck with Tacitus coming up in the Saudi Cup. Obviously cut out to be okay, considering he was a Mott 2-year-old that won impressively first out. Caught a good field. That Byland and Sea AWOD race was a good field, right?
I totally agree. And he just never really looked comfortable in that last start. And it was followed by a little bit of a layoff, so maybe it was just a jump into stakes company. Maybe it was the good turf. I think he's going to like getting back on a firm turf, kind of just spinning his wheels last time. It's kind of fun. He's half to promises fulfilled, though. Turns out to be a nice turf horse, and maybe that'll be a little bit of luck for him on Fountain of Youth Day.
I would hope so. Beat Good Magic for Dale, who's back in the mix, obviously, with Dennis's Moment coming up from post number 5 in the Fountain a bit later. For now, though, we'll get on to race number 5 here, jump starting. Actually, this is not the middle leg of the early pick 4. I think that's a race later. We got a new batch of pick 3s, doubles, super high 5s, superfectas, exactas, and tries.
I like it.
In addition to Win Play Show here in the Grade 3 Honey Fox. And our first really key rematch on the afternoon, taking a page from the Pegasus undercard back on January 25th, as we'll take a step back and look at the South Beach, and we'll look at Javier Castellano just doing what Javier does best, pulling that pocket trip and getting basically an inside run along the rail with the number 3 Atomic Blonde. Now, LaFave was essentially following her around the far turn. She wound up angling out here. She was the number 1. She's in the maroon cap of Bob LaPenta, and although Atomic Atomic Blonde will win this race in gritty fashion. Lefebvre, I thought, took a step forward for Safi. I mean, she was in pretty tight between horses.
She was. She never really had an easy time of it. I mean, what a beautiful ride Atomic Blonde that got that day, and a beautiful trip. And I spoke to Todd yesterday, and he said that was, and though she's improved in each start, that was kind of the, okay, she's putting it all together and is a legitimate contender in this category. So she's going to be tough as well. I thought agreed. I thought Lefebvre really took a nice step forward. There should be a fair bit of speed in here. The Conquest Card Candy had trouble at the start last time. Normally, she's the type we know just goes. Valedictorian, especially off the layoff. I think Munchkin Money can get a very good trip today.
And I was curious. I had picked Acacia's brain a couple days ago after this race was drawn, wondering ultimately that race Munchkin Money comes out of, and she's been a hard-hitting New York bred for quite some time up and down the Northeast, mainly in the Big Apple, where she's been that Mount Vernon, Yaddo, Ticonderoga type quality. But I think as good as Atomic Blonde and as salty as that South Beach field was on the Pegasus undercard, I still think her effort in the Marshalls River is like the recent real benchmark to this field against Magic Star.
I agree, and I think that Magic Star is very good, and she's still so lightly raced. I don't think we've even really seen her best yet. So she ran a big race, and Dana Del Sur has obviously proved her quality and consistency for Tom Albertrani. So I think that was a nice field that she came out of. Mitchell Road, 55. She's just been running against some top-notch horses.
Definitely. We move on. Only other non-stakes on the card, by the way, everybody, is our sixth race with the post time of about 2 p.m. Eastern, dubbed the APND, right? Yeah, no, it was nice seeing his name in the program.
I knew you'd be excited about that.
For sure, no. And he ran right before I got into the game as a fan, but I mean, his legacy and then some, considering $2.9 million yearling, multiple Eclipse Award champion, horse of the year, and then just what he did in the breeding shed. I mean, one of a kind for sure. And pretty solid field in the second level allowance race where rather than take one of the rematching horses from the February 2nd race where Trophy Chaser just ran away and hid, I'm going to take a horse that's been running recently with good form at Gulfstream but didn't come out of that race in Squeeze Adios, who's just, boy, has he stepped up his game collectively for trainer Terry Pompey. And I still think even turning back just slightly here, that losing that 16th and going 8.5 furlongs as opposed to 9 is going to help him out.
I agree. I think it was a little bit of a stretch last time in the Sunshine Millions Classic, which was a tough field, and he ran very well behind Noble Drama, who's come back and been very good for Dave Fox. Ran second behind Endorse, 2 starts back, Be Cutting Humor. He's been a very impressive horse off the layup. That said, his last 3 races have been very tough, very gritty. Is he going to continue to move forward? Because I do think that he will need one of his best efforts today. Obviously, Scars Are Cool has been a little bit of a frustrating horse if you've been a fan of him. I think like Jason and I have been. He won going a mile and an eighth back in Saratoga. I think a big reason he was a favorite last time. He turns back slightly. I think he's definitely a 2-turn horse. As he said, nobody was catching Trophy Chaser that day, and he was beat by a good one. So I'm going to give him one more try this afternoon.
Plus Cur Parfait. I mean, he is basically, I mean, he's not coming out of, obviously, it's an understatement, he's not coming out of a recent race here at Gulfstream. He's kind of the story to this race, though, considering about a year ago, 11 months ago, essentially to the day, he won the, $2.5 million UAE Derby, ran in the Kentucky Derby behind Max and Country House, and then only ran twice after that in the Belmont Derby and the West Virginia Derby. Returns here at Gulfstream Park, kind of a traditional speedy track. I'm just wondering if he's going to need a race or two if he's okay moving forward.
It's so interesting, and you and I talked about this a little bit too. You're just kind of like, what do I do with this horse? You know, he's obviously got a lot of quality. He hasn't run since August, but he's been training really well up at Palm Meadows for Brendan Walsh, and he has some speed. That certainly is a good weapon for him. He's shown that he deserves to be running in the big races, just given who he's kept company with. So we'll see what we get from him, but he certainly makes it a very fascinating race.
He definitely does. Nice to see him in the mix for a very good trainer. We know that in Brendan Walsh. Back up into stakes for the remainder of this February 29th Fast and Firm card at Gulfstream Park as we turn our attention to the older fillies and mares in the Grade 3 Very One at a mile and 3/16. And you do get quite a sense off the bat of trainer H. Graham Motion,
Yeah.
just the depth of his roster and stable when it comes to more of these longer-winded, older fillies and mares on the turf. Mean Mary's here,
Yeah.
and she's not coming back today, and I can't wait to see her
I
run
know.
again. But despite her absence, Graham's got 3 in the race.
Yeah.
I didn't pick Graham, however, because I think the 5, I think this is just really shrewd placement from Todd. Running the 5, Cap the Crew, obviously is still eligible for her non-winners and one allowance condition, but given the great race here right before Christmas against Mean Mary and a tough but very solid loss in a good allowance field to wrap up January, I think she's a very good fit in a race where maybe some of the others, not to say they're not classy or accomplished, but I just think she's going this way where maybe some of the others in the race have already peaked or hit their ceiling.
That's fair. That's fair. I actually, on the other side of the thing, was a little bit concerned about her, wondering if she's maybe just kind of stuck in second gear. And I think that she very well could be moving in the right direction. I mean, she's trained by Todd Pletcher. She's kept some great company. She's run some huge races here. Though I kind of look back and I said, wow, she really only has ever won one race, and she's got 5 seconds. She always runs well, but always seems to just come up a little bit short. I absolutely respect her. She was awkward out of the gate last time too, and I think her tactical speed is one of her best advantages, so hopefully she gets out a little bit sharper today, and Flavian Pratt going to be aboard. I did go with Tariga, who was beaten by her stablemate Mean Mary last time, and this mare is the type that just always seems to fly under the radar, so I don't know if we're going to get a price. Maybe word's out about her now, but I love that John Velasquez stays aboard. I think 1.5 miles was a touch too much for her last time, so I like the 1 mile and 3/16 for her.
Yeah, she cuts back. She obviously doesn't have to run against her stablemate. It looks like a real monster for Graham. And less distance today with Johnny V. No, Tariga's doing well, and she clearly likes it here. And you just have a horse who's flourishing here and now at Gulfstream for H. Graham Motion in the very one. Out of stakes, I misspoke. This will be the last non-stakes on the card, everybody.
This is a
Not
great
the
race,
AP
though.
and the allowance race. Yeah, this race is awesome. You just have, I mean, off the bat, in this 3-year-old maiden special at 1 mile, I love that you've got so much representation from different recent maiden races here at Gulfstream Park, and then you can factor in a little bit of the Chad Firster, the $1.2 million medallia colt who turned some heads here in the facing sale last March in Hero Doro. Just an excellent, excellent field. As far as, and I'm curious, and I'll let you speak, Acacia, as far as the race that I want out of the recent Gulfstream maiden fields, that market analysis attachment race, I mean, obviously that race has, in a way, going into this, I think it's separated itself at maybe being perhaps, if not the best, certainly top 2 or 3 that we've run.
I agree. I think market analysis is very good, and I think attachment rate has the potential to be very, very good. He broke his maiden the next time out. Market analysis, I think, is a really talented Todd Pletcher horse. And I had actually, looking back at my notes, it's nice when you see these horses making their second start. I can see what I thought of them all first time and maybe kind of refresh my memory a little bit. And I looked back and I was like, wow. Precise Dancer was a real standout in his debut, though unfortunately he just had those 2 maybe monsters to deal with in his debut. So I think second time out, we're going to see a really good performance from this colt by Verrazano. Now, that said, Gimme Some Mo is interesting as he was really vocal, unprofessional in his debut. Much better last time, though it was beaten by his stablemate Candy Tycoon, who will be in the Fountain of Youth.
And it does seem that was hands down the best race Candy Tycoon had ever run and has ever run to this point. Had a bit of a maybe dubious distinction at being a real disappointment and money burner, but maybe Gimme Some Mo lost to a horse who's just figured things out, and I do like the slight turn back and 1-turn mile configuration of this race for the 12 Gimme Some Mo. Talking about one of the other recent Gulfstream races, let's get to the start, head-on start of a race on the Holy Bull undercard from that Saturday, February 1st, concerning ourselves with Mr. Candy Ride and Awakened, and Mr. Candy Ride, the number 5, in those violet colors of Harold Lerner, was off very slow, and that put him behind the 8 ball, and Shug's horse lacked a lot of speed as well. They're both second and last as they come out of the chute. We switch gears, and you'll watch this sustained, prolonged run of the number 5, Mr. Candy Ride. Awakened with Edgar Prado essentially just followed him. Both of these horses, though, Acacia, ran fine in a race where Mr. Candy Ride at over 10-1 really put the big scare into the monster Uncle Mo favorite on the lead in Palm Springs.
Yeah, he ran huge, I must say. He really was very impressive, and he really shocked me. I was a little bit dubious about him going into that race. Palm Springs looked like far and above the one to beat, and he just was able to gut out the victory. But I thought that Shug's horse Awaken finished up really nicely, and I think the big thing is first to second start, we're going to see even more from Awakened.
First start, we've got 2 in here. Todd's horse for Bobby Flay, the 5, Fried Rice King, who may need one. The dam won 4 dirt route races. I remember Super Espresso.
Yeah.
I'm sure a lot of people do, including you. 5th full out of her. Her production has been a little lackluster to this point. And we got to mention the Medallia horse that sold here at Gulfstream in our 2-year-old in training sale last March, debuting for Chad and Javier after working that furlong in 10-1 out of a dam who went 1 for 9.
He was the talk of the town at the sale, though, for sure, and getting that $1.2 million for him was very impressive. And though the dam was maybe not the sharpest on the track herself, she's been a nice producer. There is some turf in the family, so I'm curious, especially being by Medallia d'Oro, what we're going to get from this one, but I'm excited to see him.
A former $310,000 yearling, quite the pinhook success story.
Not bad at all.
Yep, at Fasig-Tipton last March. We still have the Fasig Fountain of Youth coming up and a whole lot more after this.
It's the dawn of a new day in racing. All attention is on the safety of the horses from more professionals than ever before. Our eyes are on the prize to gallop past the old era towards a reinvention of our sport. Take your place with us now. This is it. The future of racing is off and running. It's all happening at each of our world-class venues. Our new vision for racing will drive us past the finishing line, heralding a new era for the sport. When betting, avoid the rush and allow First Bet to give you a leg up. Our app uses real-time data to help you make your bets with confidence. Enjoy a new vision for post-race entertainment. From the oval to the stage, the after party, and beyond. We invite you to the future of racing. A first of its kind.
Well, it's 8 down on our show, 6 to go. Couldn't have asked for a better weather day here in Hallandale Beach with the high rises in the background and blue sky for miles. And love that shot from the clubhouse turn. And things, although the crowd is certainly unquestionably and undoubtedly coming through the turnstiles, or the theoretical turnstiles downstairs, things will really heat up in about 45 minutes time with the first of 14 on a mega day of racing.
Oh, it's just fantastic. We've got guaranteed pools. We have 10 stakes, 9 of them graded, of course, highlighted by the Fasig-Tipton Fountain of Youth. 85 Kentucky Derby points on the line, and we're excited. We're tired, but we're excited.
Definitely. It's been a long week, but a good one, and it all comes to a perfect crescendo today, and not often do you get up to a 9th race on any particular card and say, well, we're starting the Rainbow Six, the Pick Six here, but that's the case with a $300,000 guarantee.
All right, I stepped it up a little bit today. Big day ticket. My single is Spice is Nice. I am using 3 horses in the first leg. It starts with a grade 3. Here Comes the Bride. I like Declaration Warrior. She's my long shot pick of the day. Have to use Abscond, so I'm using 3 horses in there. Devona Dale, Spice is Nice is the anchor, though it's a nice field. Tonalist shape has been good, and I think Reluctant Bride has a bit of a chance as well, switching to the main track. Canadian Turf is tough. I'm 3 deep in there. I think Mr. Dumas, who is actually the Nicoletti long shot of the day, but first-time maker, he's got a big shot in there as well. We continue on with the Gulfstream Mile, which I think is one of my favorite races on the day. I know Jason feels the same way. Really awesome field put together there, and I'm 4 deep in that one. McDermott, 3 deep for there. Sadler's Joy, Zulu Alpha, A Thread of Blue. Love all these horses, and I'm 3 deep as well in race 14 with Dennis's Moment, as seen on TV, and Chance It.
So you're going with the class to close things out. I mean, the 2 Mucho Macho rematchers and Chance It and As Seen, and the returning Dennis's Moment, who drew very well and seems to really be enjoying his time here, spent this winter at Gulfstream Park. He's been working great for trainer Dale Romans. Good to see him back in the mix, as we also have a second off the layoff type of abscond who kept a high level. Dare I say, one of the more accomplished 2-year-old turf fillies throughout the country, North America last year, by virtue of that Grade 1 win in Woodbine's Natama. Wasn't badly beaten in a bunched up finish in the BC Juvenile Turf Fillies, and returned to me. And we'll backtrack to that race back on January 4th. I think this was the Mucho Macho Man undercard. She ran well. Didn't run, I don't think, her best race, but this to me was just a nice springboard effort. And ultimately, I think she is very much the benchmark of this field, considering I'm expecting, and I think a lot of people, Acacia, are going to be expecting her to step forward off this loss.
Well, Tyler Gaffleon made a really smart move on the winner. She's my type. And with that outside post, he moved her earlier. And Abscond tried to follow, but did not have as much kick. She finished up okay. She was only beaten by 3/4 of a length, and she's my type and Chad's moral reasoning. So she faced a nice field that day, and maybe second off the layoff, we're going to get a little bit from her. Do note, though, she stumbled at the start, too, at that race. So she was kind of taken out of her element from the beginning, and it was a big field of 12, too. And she's very small. I had kind of forgotten about it because you see all the hustle and bustle of Breeders' Cup. So I saw her really up close again, and I was like, I forgot how little she is. And so I think that she just maybe never really was able to kind of get her feet underneath of her. So we should see a bigger effort. That said, I took a bit of a price horse, 1 of 2 for Mark Casse. Declaration Warrior was flattered when Duchess of Sussex came back to win. I loved her in her first start, thought she needed a race, came back, she really delivered, ran a really big performance. And I just kind of going around through this field, I said, let me try to get a price and a horse that I think has talent, and it'll be a big step, but I'll take a shot with it.
Sounds good. Let's move on to the 10th. We hit double digits. We start that guaranteed. Couple of key guarantees coming up late in the day, including the pick 5 that has a $500,000 waiting for you. And much like Acacia, I think quite a few people, Spice is Nice is going to be, maybe not a universal single with tonalist shape in there, but she's going to be odds on. And the hype train, and rightfully so, the hype train has been in full effect following that gigantic daylight win, which we're going to look at in just a few seconds. So she is the single. Coverage in the 11th, 12th, 13th. Nothing too crazy, although I think High Call is sitting on a career best in a race in the 12th where he's going to get a screaming pace to close down along with the Fat Man. And I'm using, I think, the 2 classiest horses, certainly the more accomplished to date in the Fountain of Youth in Dennis's Moment and the 12 Chancet, who's got to go from that tough post 11, which we'll talk about in a few seconds. Backtracking, though, to Spice is Nice. I didn't forget her effort. I didn't forget how good we think she is, the purchase price, the connections, all that. What I forgot about was what happened to her in race, where she didn't have, maybe in my mind, that traditional first or second over Todd Pletcher speed trip. You're out in the clear, hunting the horses to you inside. It was quite the contrary with her, and we'll take a look at Spice is Nice in that maiden win first time out. Well, at this point, she's made the lead, and she's about to kick clear right above the quarter pole. She had knifed her way, though, and had to really rally and fight her way up the inside. This was not a cakewalk trip for Spice is Nice, who will do her thing and just widen away in really a jaw-dropping effort.
Jaw-dropping is a good word for it. And I had looked at her in the paddock, and I admit I had kind of wondered, is she going to need a race? Will she want 2 turns? Is this going to be maybe just a building block effort for her? Because now she's pulled away from the rest of the field, but when she's amongst it, you can see just how much bigger she is than everybody else that she's facing. And really, jaw-dropping is a good word. And one of the things, and I had asked Todd about this, is in the morning she's been training with some of the top colts in his barn. Liam's Point, who won first out and was really highly touted, Market Analysis, who we mentioned, and she almost kind of dwarfs them. And Todd had said that, yet she's so big, you need to find company in the morning, but it was also to test her and see just how good she was, and she's really responded every time.
Well, in that theory, she's well drawn, at least. I'm sure they were relieved that she didn't draw down inside with that big scoping size of her, and she's here, it looks like, and the others have a perceived maybe spot of being over here. It's not to say it's not going to be a good race, and to say someone can't really test her this afternoon. If that happens, I think we're going to get a far better and far faster race out of the 9 tonalist shape. I'd like to think, in my mind, as she's obviously unbeaten, I think Safi full well knew that Forward Gal race was coming up on the light side, smallish field, and that he probably didn't have to have her sitting on 100% cranked, and I think she's going to springboard forward. Will it be enough, though, to run against a horse who may even improve off that first start?
Yeah, she will need to improve a lot, I think. But I mean, look, she's done nothing wrong. She won the Hut. She won the Grade 3 Forward Gal. She's undefeated. She was the first graded stakes winner for Tonalist. She's really done nothing wrong as of yet. And again, just to throw in a price, I really do think that Reluctant Bride is very good, and I like her on the dirt. And I had spoken to Patrick Biancone about this the other day, because Ete Indian is a perfect other example. He says with really good horses, he likes to start them on the turf. It's a little bit of a softer trip, switch them to the dirt, and sometimes that's just where they kind of have their coming out party. And to go right into a graded stakes for her dirt try could be very interesting.
Well, it's been hard to argue with that theory, considering you've got Ete Indy and Sol Volante for that barn, and even Diamond Oops, who started his career, if memory serves, on the turf and dirt, and he's been able to switch hit back and forth. A lot of diversity in that barn. As we step forward, race number 11 on this 14-race Fountain of Youth Day is the Grade 3 Canadian Turf, where a pretty important allowance rematch from January 26 between Sambaye and your top pick, Hey Dakota. We also factor in some new shooters in this race, like my top selection, who I was happy to hear Ronnie picked as his long shot. I mean, I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel. I think with the 7, Mr. Dumas, I don't know what price he is, but he got good over the fall. Didn't handle Mo Forza to trip out to Del Mar right around Thanksgiving for the Hollywood Derby. But this was a then 3-year-old who really got good last quarter of 2019, and now he's first-time maker, having trained, and I love this. He's been at Gulfstream from at least right around Christmas, if not sooner. I love that he's had plenty of time to really get into the maker program.
Yeah, you don't need to worry about him not knowing what to expect here in South Florida or anything like that. So I think he's definitely got a big shot, and he's a graded stakes winner. I did take Hey Dakota once again. I thought that he had the potential perhaps to have a similar trip that he did last time. Guido is a lot of pace. Jamontier is going to send, but though I will say Guido was so game last time out to hold on, where we saw Jamontier, the other pace, kind of fade. So I thought it was a big step forward for him, and I still do love Sambaye sticking on the turf.
Definitely. This might, and we got to get on, and we still have 3 monster races to talk about here, Acacia, before Pete from the booth comes up with those Fountain of Youth Day changes. We move on to perhaps the best Gulfstream Mile of all time.
Great race.
Grade 2 race, obviously 8 furlongs on the dirt. Just a jam-packed field, a lot of quality. Probably the big-name horse, by virtue of that good second behind Mucho Gusto, is the 9 Mr. Freeze. And you can't deny his quality to date. And I think he may find his true calling as a one-turn miler. I really think this might be what he's best at, even though he's obviously run well beyond the mile around 2 turns. Thing is with him, he seems to do his best when he's on the lead, and to me, that is the real crux of this race. There's so much pace in here. I think this race may just bust apart at the seams when they hit the quarter pole.
You've got Bodie Express, Mr. Freeze's speed. Zenden has just been sending in his last few starts, even Rare Form. So I wonder, with Rare Form being in there as well, if maybe Mr. Freeze on the turnback will try to rate a little bit, but he does seem to be best when he's on the lead, and he's not a big horse. I think one-turn mile is very much more in his scope. Speaking of that, I took a bit of a price in the 11 Hog Creek Hustle, another horse that just always seems to kind of fly under the radar, but I think he's talented. He won the Woody Stevens. He almost won the H. Allen Jurgens Grade 1 at Saratoga, going 7/8 beyond Mind Control, and he's game. And he looked to me, and I saw him paddock school the other day, dappled out from head to toe, looked fantastic, looks like a more 7/8 one-turn mile type.
Definitely. He's a must-use for me. I've got him 4th, included him in my pick 5, and maybe has a number of parallels with the number 2, High Call, in that they're a couple of newly turned 4-year-olds that showed quality, different-looking maybe 3-year-old campaigns, as High Call didn't run after the Wood Memorial, but they were both pretty good in their respective 2019 showings, and I just think we're still dealing with very much a work in progress with Kieran's High Call.
I spoke to Kieran about High Call and True Timber, who also comes out of the Pegasus, and he seemed really keen about this horse, who's been kind of just going right by True Timber in the mornings, who does have the recency edge.
Oh, I like hearing that for sure. I don't think you're seeing anywhere near 10-1, though, with High Call. I just don't see it. Anyway, let's move on to the 13th race. We precede the Fasig-Tipton Fountain of Youth with another strong field. I mean, really grade 1.5 as far as the cast and quality in the mile and 3 furlongs. Grade 2 McDermott, and it's just amazing, like the durability and longevity when you just take nothing else into account, but you just see the names of Sadler's Joy, Channel Maker, and to a large extent Zulu Alpha, who are all older veterans still hitting hard in their respective camps.
And obviously Zulu Alpha, I mean, this was a horse who was running in the allowance optional claiming levels and all of a sudden turned into this just spectacular graded stakes winner. He's actually trying to defend his title in the McDermott as well, winning this race in 2019. Obviously his big now claim to fame, winning the Pegasus World Cup Turf last time out with a beautiful ride by Tyler Gaffalione.
Definitely. Now, Sadler's Joy comes out of the Pegasus Turf, and why don't we skip that race so we can get on to the Fountain of Youth. However, I think Sadler's Joy in this spot, just in hindsight, you got to take a shot and run whatever it was, $3 million or $1 million for the Turf. Mil. My own 3/16 though is just short of his best.
I agree. I think the mile and 3/8 is going to be better. I mean, he's really like a mile and a half type. He can just run all day. And unfortunately, he has that come from behind running style, which is exciting to watch, but unfortunately, and Tom Albertrani always joked that he likes to give him a heart attack in doing it, you never really know if he's going to try to get there. He had a lot of trouble in the Pegasus as well, so this is going to be a good spot for him. I'm taking a shot with the Thread of Blue. This has always been one of my favorite horses. This is going to be the longest he's gone since the mile and a half try in the Jockey Club Derby. But I had spoken to Luis Saez, and he said he hates when there's moisture in the ground. He does not get over a softened turf at all. And Kieran had said to me that the mile was too short for him last time out in the tropical turf. So I'm going to give him another shot. Hope that he gets onto the lead. But Kieran McLaughlin had even said, even if he's close, he doesn't have to be dictating the pace.
No, he has one rating. I still think his best game is when he's out there just with that high cruising speed and going 11. He's probably going to get it in this field. As we wrap things up, 74th running of the Grade 2, facing Tipton, Fountain of Youth. Got 11 ready to rumble here. That early scratch of Maccabim, who looked like 50-1, 99-1. So he's out. We go with 11. That does move the likes of Ete Indian and Chance It in a couple of stalls. But Dennis's moment breaks from basically mid-pack, and he's been training really well here at Gulfstream Park. I like the way he's been moving over this dirt track, as we'll check out his recent work. In fact, he had prepped for this race, his final tune-up beneath apprentice, or I should say exercise rider, Tammy Fox. She's a veteran, not an apprentice for sure. Knows her way around a good horse with Dale, and here he is stretching his legs as he makes his first and highly anticipated start since the Breeders' Cup.
You know, it's been interesting. He's a nice, beautiful-looking horse. He's a nice mover. It seems like this was probably one of his sharpest work. So I did check out the Clocker report, and he has not been nearly as sharp in the mornings as he was leading up to the Breeders' Cup. So I don't know if that's more that he's matured and he doesn't need to be so fast in the mornings, or maybe he's not quite as precocious. Maybe things have kind of evened out a bit. Should be interesting. I'm curious to see. Though I absolutely respect what he's done. Once he stumbled at the start, there was just no making up ground. And to be honest, I kind of feel like that Breeders' Cup Juvenile is a throwout race. So
for him, yeah.
Honestly, for everybody.
One of the softest Breeders. With him stumbling, it was
Yeah.
one of the softest Breeders' Cup Juveniles I've ever seen, up there with the likes of Anise and maybe an Answer Lively and a few other horses. But obviously, he was very good, and for a Dale Roman's 2-year-old to be running the kind of figures and those two dominant wins, this horse has a lot of talent. Will we see it today? Obviously, the first step of two very important steps before the Kentucky Derby. Then you've got the crew from the Mucho Macho Man, and we'll backtrack to that race from the first Saturday of January with Chance It, who didn't get really, I don't think, the trip that he's most comfortable with, being inside with that big stride of his. He'll put on a show with that seen on TV. This was a great race, and both these horses have their sights set on one another again.
And I thought Chance It ran very well coming back on the inside. He was very game, and as you said, big stride. He hits the ground hard, and these two really put on a nice show for us as well. He does have to deal with the outside post. I will say, as seen on TV, who I had not actually seen in person until last time out, I was wondering, could he handle the distance? And not only seeing him before the race, but seeing how he finished up the race, I think he's going to be just fine going the mile and 16ths, and he does have the advantage of a nice post.
We're huge fans of Chance It.
Absolutely.
That post, though, even with the scratch of Maccabim, still tough to win out there. And here's just a recent, up-to-date statistic as far as those three outside posts, the 9, 10, and 11 in this 11-horse cast. Obviously, far more starters from stall number 9 with 8 winners. Once you move out, though, beyond and you hit double digits occasion, not a big sample per se, but man, I mean, with Ete Indian and Chance, it's so tough. You give up so much ground with that. I mean, it's like a minuscule run into the first turn.
It is, and don't forget it's a first finish line race as well, so there's not much you can really make up in the stretch either. So you need to be in a good position there, especially if you're trying to close. These horses to the outside, along with Shotsky, do have a lot of speed as well, so the first part of the race will be crucial.
Absolutely. As we take a little time out here on this Fountain of Youth edition of Gulfstream Park today, and we'll take a little breather occasion. We've got Ron joining us downstairs all day from our Paddock Set studios, and the man, Pete Aiello, standing by with those scratches and changes.